Welcome to your deep dive into the University of Aberdeen. I know you're eager to learn more about this historic institution, and we're going way beyond the typical brochures and websites today. We've got a stack of sources from historical accounts and Wikipedia to recent news articles ready to uncover some fascinating insights. You might think you know the basics, but trust me, there's always more to discover.
Absolutely, especially with the university as old and storied as Aberdeen. What's particularly interesting is how the university we know today actually emerged from the merger of two older colleges. It's like a university with a double identity, which makes its story even more intriguing.
Okay, so let's rewind back to the 15th century, to 1495 to be exact. That's when King's College was founded, making it the fifth oldest university in the English-speaking world. That alone is pretty impressive. But what really struck me was that it all started with a paper bull from Pope Alexander VI himself. It seems like they really wanted to make a statement.
It wasn't just a symbolic gesture. Securing a papal bull at that time meant the university had the backing of the most powerful institution in Europe. It also tells us something about their ambitions. The original intention was to model King's College after the University of Paris, which was the leading center of learning in Europe at the time.
So they were aiming high from the start, but it wasn't just about replicating Parisian prestige, was it? They had a very specific mission in mind for King's College.
Yes, they were focused on training people who would serve the communities of Northern Scotland, doctors, teachers, clergy, and of course lawyers. In fact, they even established the world's first chair of medicine at King's College in 1497. It shows their commitment to both intellectual pursuit and practical application of knowledge.
So we've got this ambitious King's College, steeped in tradition and shaping the future of Northern Scotland. But the story doesn't end there. Just a few decades later, in 1593, enter Marischal College. I'm sensing a potential rivalry brewing here.
You're absolutely right. Marischal College, founded by George Keith V, Earl Marischal, was conceived as a Protestant alternative to King's College, which still had strong Catholic leanings at the time. So right from the start, you have this clash of ideologies and identities, and it's going to play out in some fascinating ways.
I can imagine. You've got these two universities in the same city vying for students' prestige and intellectual dominance. It makes you wonder how that played out in everyday life.
Well, their locations definitely reflected their different characters. King's College was nestled in the old part of Aberdeen, almost like a secluded academic enclave. Marischal College, on the other hand, was right in the heart of the city's bustling commercial center.
And I bet those contrasting settings led to some interesting interactions, maybe even a few clashes between the students.
Oh, absolutely. There are accounts of legendary student brawls in the streets of Aberdeen, fueled by academic rivalry and maybe a pint or two of ale. These weren't just abstract debates happening in lecture halls. The rivalry spilled out into the city itself, making the universities inseparable from the fabric of Aberdeen life.
It paints a pretty vivid picture, doesn't it? But all this rivalry aside, there were attempts to merge the two colleges, right? It seems almost inevitable considering they were in such close proximity.
You'd think so, but it proved more complicated than that. In the 17th century, there were a couple of almost mergers. Most notable was under King Charles I, when they were briefly united as the Caroline University.
But it didn't last, did it? What kept pulling them apart?
It was a combination of factors. The political climate was volatile, there were religious differences, and of course the deep-seated rivalry played a role. It wasn't just a matter of logistics. It was about merging two very distinct identities and cultures.
So it seems like the idea of a unified university was always there simmering beneath the surface. But before we jump ahead to that final merger, there's another intriguing chapter in the story we need to explore.
Ah, yes. You're talking about the Aberdeen Philosophical Society, better known as the Wise Club. This wasn't just your typical student club. It was founded in 1758 by some of the leading intellectuals of the Scottish Enlightenment figures like Thomas Reid and George Campbell.
The Scottish Enlightenment. That rings a bell, but can you remind me why it was such a big deal?
This was a period of incredible intellectual and scientific flourishing in Scotland, a time when thinkers were challenging traditional ideas and pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. And the Wise Club was right at the heart of it.
Okay, now it's all coming back. So this Wise Club wasn't just a bunch of students getting together to discuss philosophy over coffee. These were serious scholars shaping the ideas that would influence the world.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that the club was incredibly exclusive. Membership was strictly limited to individuals in learned professions, doctors, lawyers, professors, people who were actively engaged in shaping society. They would meet regularly to present papers and debate everything from philosophy and science to literature.
It makes you wonder what those discussions were like. Can you imagine being a fly on the wall in one of those meetings? It must have been like a brain trust generating ideas that would shape the course of history.
It really highlights how the University of Aberdeen, even with its internal rivalries, was a place where big ideas were born and debated, a true hub of intellectual activity.
Hmm.
And that spirit of inquiry, that willingness to challenge conventional thinking, has continued to this day.
Okay, so we've got these two rival colleges, this fascinating period of intellectual ferment during the Scottish Enlightenment. It's a lot to take in, but ultimately these two institutions, King's and Marischal, were destined to become one.
Yes, in 1860, the Universities Scotland Act finally brought about the merger that created the University of Aberdeen as we know it today. It was a pivotal moment, not just for the university, but for the city of Aberdeen itself.
And it paved the way for a whole new chapter in the university's story, one marked by expansion, transformation, and a few more surprises along the way. But we'll dive into that in just a moment.
This merger wasn't just a matter of bringing two institutions together under one name. It was a merging of identities, a blending of traditions, and it really set the stage for the university's evolution into the modern era.
And that evolution involves some pretty dramatic transformations, right? I mean, we're talking about a university that spans centuries. It must have gone through some architectural growing pains.
Absolutely. In the 20th century, the university embarked on a major expansion, building new facilities around King's College. Initially, they tried to maintain a sense of architectural continuity, constructing buildings that echoed the grand, almost medieval style of the older structures. You can still see those echoes today, those nods to the university's deep roots.
But they didn't shy away from embracing more modern styles, did they? I've seen pictures of some buildings on campus that have a very distinct look, shall we say.
Yes, in the 1960s, they made a bold choice to incorporate brutalist architecture into the campus design. It was a style that was popular at the time, known for its raw concrete aesthetic and geometric forms. It's a bit of a departure from the traditional granite buildings, but it reflects the university's willingness to adapt and evolve with the times.
It's a bit like they're saying, we're not afraid to embrace the new, even if it clashes with the old. And that willingness to push boundaries extends beyond architecture, doesn't it? Especially when you consider the university's contributions to medical research and education.
Absolutely. The development of the Forester Hill campus is a prime example. It's now one of Europe's largest health campuses, a testament to the university's commitment to advancing medical knowledge and training the next generation of healthcare professionals.
So we've got this picture of a university that's constantly evolving, embracing new ideas, and expanding its reach. But let's not forget those deep roots, the traditions that have shaped the University of Aberdeen's identity. We've already talked about the world's first chair of medicine, but did you know that the Aberdeen Breviary, the first book printed in both Edinburgh and
It's a fascinating connection. The Aberdeen Breviary was a liturgical book printed in 1509, and it shows that even in its early years, the university was playing a role in the spread of knowledge and the development of printing technology. It wasn't just a center of learning, it was a hub of cultural production.
That's incredible. It really adds another dimension to the university story. But it's important to acknowledge that the university's journey hasn't been without its complexities and controversies, has it? For example, I understand there was resistance to admitting women for degrees.
That's true. Like many institutions of its time, the University of Aberdeen initially hesitated to grant women full access to higher education. It wasn't until 1892 that all faculties were finally open to women.
It seems almost unthinkable now, but it's a reminder of how much society has changed and how universities have had to adapt to those changes.
And it's worth noting that once the doors were opened, women quickly made their mark. By the following year, 1893, women made up a quarter of the student body. It's a testament to their determination and a sign of the positive changes that were sweeping through academia.
It's a great example of how progress, once it starts, can gain momentum quickly. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about a more recent controversy, one that really grabbed headlines and sparked debate, both within the university and beyond its walls. I'm talking about the proposed cuts to the modern languages programs in 2023.
This was a complex issue that brought to light some of the challenges facing universities today. The university was facing a budget deficit, and modern languages departments were seeing declining enrollment. So the administration proposed cutting those programs as a cost-saving measure.
But it didn't go over well, did it? It seemed to ignite a real passion in the university community and beyond.
It absolutely did. There was immediate and fierce opposition from students, faculty, and even alumni. The Student Senate voted against the cuts, and a group of academics issued a statement condemning the proposal as institutional vandalism. A public petition to save the programs garnered over 18,600 signatures.
It even caught the attention of the Scottish Parliament and EU consulates, which shows how significant this issue was. What were some of the arguments against the cuts?
Well, many argued that cutting modern languages would undermine the university's commitment to a well-rounded education and limit students' opportunities in a globalized world. Others saw it as prioritizing short-term financial gains over the long-term value of humanities education.
It sounds like a classic battle between the bottom line and the broader educational mission. So, how did it all play out? Did the university ultimately go through with the cuts?
This is where it gets really interesting. The local branch of the University and College Union, UCU, which represents academic staff, held a successful strike action ballot. And in a rather dramatic turn of events, the combined pressure of the strike threat and some innovative business proposals put forward by staff members ultimately led to the modern languages degrees being saved.
That's quite a victory. It shows the power of collective action and how, even in the face of financial constraints, universities can find ways to protect essential programs.
It's a reminder that a university is more than just a business. It's a community of scholars, students, and staff who are passionate about learning and discovery. And when that community unites around a common cause, they can achieve remarkable things.
Speaking of community, what can you tell us about student life at Aberdeen? It seems like the university has such a rich history and strong traditions. I imagine that extends to student life as well.
You're right. The Aberdeen University Students Association, or AUSA, has a unique character. Unlike many student unions, AUSA doesn't operate a traditional student union building. They actually had two union buildings that closed in recent years, which suggests a shift in student social dynamics.
That's interesting. It makes you wonder how students connect and socialize without a central hub.
Well, AUSA still plays a vital role in student life. They support over 100 clubs and societies covering a wide range of interests, from sports and music to debating and volunteering. And some of these organizations have fascinating historical roots. For example, the Aberdeen University Debater was founded in 1848 and boasts Scotland's oldest purpose-built debating chamber.
Wow, that's impressive. It seems like there's something for everyone, and those historical connections must add a special layer to the student experience. Are there any other unique traditions that stand out?
There's the Sponsio Academica, which is a matriculation oath that dates back to the medieval origins of the university.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that it was originally in Latin and has now been digitized. It's a great example of tradition meeting technology.
It's like they're acknowledging the weight of history while embracing the digital age. But let's be honest, the tradition that really caught my eye was the one about the new rector riding a bull.
Ah, yes, the bull riding rector. It's a wonderfully quirky tradition that really captures the spirit of Aberdeen. Imagine the newly elected rector being paraded through Old Aberdeen on the back of a bull, surrounded by cheering students.
It's not something you see every day. It definitely makes you want to experience student life at Aberdeen firsthand.
It does. It's a reminder that university life isn't just about academics. It's about those shared experiences, those quirky traditions, and the sense of community that binds students together.
We've covered a lot of ground so far, from papal bulls and student brawls to brutalist architecture and bull-riding rectors. The University of Aberdeen certainly has a knack for weaving together the serious and the whimsical. But we're not done yet. There's still more to explore, from notable alumni to the university's lasting impact on the world.
It's that blend of history, tradition, and innovation that makes Aberdeen so unique. And it's certainly attracted some remarkable minds over the centuries. When you look at the list of notable alumni, it's quite a diverse and accomplished group.
I was just looking at that list myself, and it's pretty impressive. You've got figures like George Wishart, who played a key role in the Scottish Reformation, and Thomas Reid, one of the founders of the Scottish School of Common Sense Philosophy. It's like a who's who of intellectual history.
It is. And it spans a wide range of fields. You have prominent politicians like Alistair Darling, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Tessa Joel, a leading figure in the Labour Party, who was instrumental in bringing the 2012 Olympics to London.
And it's not just politics and philosophy. There are groundbreaking scientists like Patrick Manson, considered the father of tropical medicine, and the renowned botanist Robert Brown, who discovered Brownian motion. He studied at Aberdeen, though he didn't actually graduate.
That's right. And let's not forget the 5 Nobel laureates associated with the university. It really highlights the breadth and depth of the education and research that's taken place at Aberdeen over the centuries.
5 Nobel laureates. That's a pretty remarkable achievement. It speaks to the university's commitment to fostering intellectual curiosity and pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
Absolutely. These alumni have gone on to make significant contributions in their respective fields, shaping our understanding of everything from philosophy and medicine to economics and politics. And
Yeah.
it all started at the University of Aberdeen.
I think it's safe to say that we've gone way beyond the brochure in this deep dive. We've explored the university's long and winding history, its unique traditions, its notable alumni, and even some of the challenges it faces in the modern world.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? From those two rival colleges, King's and Marischal, to the unified institution we see today, the University of Aberdeen has left an indelible mark on Scotland and the world.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a question for you to ponder. Given the recent debate around modern languages, how do you think universities can balance preserving tradition with adapting to modern needs and financial realities? It seems like a delicate balancing act.
It's a question that universities around the world are grappling with. How do you honor your history and legacy while also evolving to meet the demands of a changing world? There are no easy answers, but the conversation itself is essential.
And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not just about acquiring information. It's about sparking those thought-provoking questions and engaging in meaningful discussions.
Exactly. It's about exploring the complexities of the world around us and challenging ourselves to think critically and creatively.
Well, this has been an incredible journey through the history, traditions, and achievements of the University of Aberdeen. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious.